We're now going to be solving using square roots. So the whole reason why we've been simplifying square root problems is so we can actually solve quadratic problems. If we're looking at our example, our first goal is to isolate the x squared. So in order to do that, we're adding the 2 to get 12. Then in order to get rid of a square, we do the opposite operation, which is a square root. So that's why there's a square root right here. And remember, when we're simplifying, we always look for square numbers. So what makes up 12 is 4 and 3. The square root of 4 is 2, so we get 2 or 3. Now notice that there's a plus or minus. Whenever we take a square root, there's a positive root and a negative root. Now, let's look at our first example and I'll show you why that works. Here, in order to get rid of the square, we take the square root, and the square root of 25 is going to be 5 and negative 5. And we talked about just putting a plus or minus. Or if you want to write it out, you could put 5 or negative 5. Not 4, 5. Either one is fine. Now, the reason that this works is because when you square something, you're multiplying it by itself. So for our positive root, 5 squared, of course, is 25. So we see that that works. And in the same way, negative 5 squared is also 25 because negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. A negative times a negative is a positive. And that's why we have two roots. So looking at letter B, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get the x squared by itself. So we're adding the 5, and we get x squared is equal to 20. In order to get rid of a square, what we're going to do is we're going to take the square root. And when we take the square root, what we have is x equals plus or minus. And what makes up 20 is 4 and 5. And we know the square root of 4 is 2. So our final answer is plus or minus 2 square roots of 5. Once again, there's two roots. There's a positive root and a negative root. Letter C, first step is subtract the 7, and that gives us 2x squared is equal to 5. I'm going to divide it by 2. So x squared is equal to 5 over 2. I'm going to take the square root. We run across a problem. We have 2 being in the denominator, and it's a square root. So we have to rationalize it. Rationalize it is making sure that there's no square root in the denominator. And what we get is plus or minus 5 times 2 is 10. So the square root of 10. 2 times 2 is 4, and we know the square root of 4 is 2. So we have plus or minus square root of 10 over 2. Now, looking at letter D, we're going to subtract the 14, and that gives us 2x squared is equal to negative 4. We're going to divide it by 2, and we get x squared is equal to negative 2. We take the square root. Now, there's no square root of a negative. So that means that our answer is no solution. Now, looking at letter E, we're going to get the x minus 2 squared by itself. That's the first thing that we're going to do. So we're going to add the 3, and we get the x minus 2 squared is equal to 16. In order to get rid of the square, we take the square root. Remember, when we take the square root, there's a positive root and a negative root. So that's plus or minus 4. Then what we do is we add the 2. This is a little tricky because our answer, we take the positive 4. 4 plus 2 gives us a 6. And then what we do is we take the negative 4. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. Now, looking at letter F, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to subtract the 4. And we get 2, and then x plus 3 squared is equal to 24. We divide it by 2, and we get x plus 3 squared is equal to 8. Then what we're going to do is, sorry, not 8, 12. Then we're going to take the square root. And remember, 12 is 4 and 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. So x plus 3 equals plus or minus 2 square root of 3. And then we subtract the 3, so our final answer is negative 3 plus or minus 2 square root of 3. Pause the video and try the next 3 on your own. So for letter G, we subtract the 2. We get x squared is equal to 18. We take the square root. And what makes up 18 is a 9 and a 2. And the square root of 9 is 3. So our answer is plus or minus 3 square root of 2. For letter H, we're going to add the 2. And we get 5x squared is equal to 45. We're going to divide it by 5. And we get x squared is equal to 9. Then we take the square root, and the square root of 9 is 3. So we have to remember the positive and the negative root. And we get plus or minus 3. Now for our last one, we're going to add the 11. And we get x plus 4 squared is equal to 25. What we're going to do is we're going to take the square root of it. And when we take the square root, we get the x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus 5. Then what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the 4. And remember, when we subtract the 4, what's going to happen is we have 2 answers. One where it's the positive 5. 5 minus 4 is equal to 1. Then we take the negative 5. Negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9.